She was known as the unstoppable berserker, an alien warrior from a death world. Her fists could shatter steel and her roars terrified entire armies. Everyone called her a monster, cursed to destroy anything she touched. But then, a human stood before her without fear. And instead of fighting her rage, he embraced it. He saw her fury not as a curse, but as a cry for connection. In his arms, she learned that anger could protect, not destroy, and that love could be the strongest weapon of all. They called her a monster long before she even understood the word. On the red plains of Xiath, where storms raged for weeks without mercy and acidic rain carved rivers into the stone, Kara learned to survive by fighting. The gravity was crushing, the air thick with toxins, and even the trees seemed to grow with claws. It was said that every creature born on Xiath came into the world screaming and clawing for breath, but no one screamed louder than Kara. She was born massive and stronger than any other of her kind, her shoulders as wide as 2 soldiers, her hands thick with bone ridges that could cleave armored beasts in half. Her hair, a mane of shimmering silver streaked with blue, fell across her sharp, angular face. Her eyes glowed like molten steel, cold and burning at the same time. She had grown up on legends that the universe would one day send an enemy strong enough to kill her, and so she prepared every day to meet that enemy and destroy it first. When she first left Xiath, entire warbands followed her, hoping to claim her as their weapon. On foreign stations, her presence meant silent corridors, cleared markets, and terrified guards who dared not even raise their voices. She was called the Berserker of Xiath, the Worldbreaker, the Last Titan. No one saw her as anything but a blunt force of destruction. No one, until the human arrived. Kara first saw him on an abandoned mining colony orbiting the dying star Othros. She had come there for supplies, tearing open crates with her bare hands, tossing aside machinery like children's toys. The colony was silent, the walls scorched and the air stale with the scent of plasma burns. She felt his gaze before she saw him. Standing atop a broken scaffold, a thin figure watched her through cracked goggles, his breath echoing softly inside his helmet. He looked fragile, like a child's toy left out in a storm. His suit was patched and scorched, tools hung from every strap, and in his hands, he held a small datapad, not a weapon. She expected him to run. Everyone always ran. But he didn't. Instead, he lowered himself down from the scaffold slowly, as though approaching a cornered beast. His movements were calm, deliberate, and even as her molten eyes flared and her fists clenched, he kept walking forward. Kara's voice was like thunder echoing through metal halls. "Do you seek death, fragile one?" She growled, her claws flexing, her entire massive frame tense. The human didn't flinch. He pressed a button on his suit's collar, and the helmet hissed open. A gust of the colony's poisoned air hit him immediately, and he coughed, but he kept his eyes on her. "I don't think you want to kill me," he said, voice hoarse but unwavering. "I think you're tired of people running." Kara's rage flared in her chest. Her roar shook the scaffold, echoing through the empty corridors. A vibration that would have sent entire platoons scattering. But the human stood his ground. His name was Elias Verne. A field engineer, survivor of 3 warfronts, rumored to have rebuilt entire hull sections of capital ships with only scrap and a welding torch. But he looked impossibly fragile now, standing before her like a sapling facing a hurricane. Kara stalked toward him, each step cracking metal tiles beneath her feet. Elias looked up at her towering frame, sweat beading on his forehead. She could smell the fear rolling off him, but there was something else there too. Something she had never seen before. Compassion. She stopped only inches from him. Her breath gusted against his skin like furnace winds. Her eyes narrowed. "Why don't you run?" she snarled. "Why do you stand?" Elias's eyes didn't waver. "Because," he said, raising the datapad and showing her a flickering image of her, grainy security footage from a prior battle, where she had shielded a group of small Xiathan cubs from falling debris, snarling at the collapsing ceiling, holding it up long enough for them to escape. Kara felt her breath catch. "You call it rage," Elias continued, voice soft now, as if speaking to a wounded animal. "But look, you protected them. You kept them safe. That's not just rage. That's love, Kara. You love your people, even if you don't know it yet." Kara's hands shook. No one had ever dared speak to her like this. No one had ever looked deeper than the surface. She roared again, but this time, her voice broke halfway through. Her claws slammed into the ground beside him, so close she could have ended him with a twitch. But Elias stayed. He reached up, gently resting his hand on the back of her massive, trembling fist. "You're not a monster," he whispered. "You're a guardian." Kara collapsed to her knees. Her shoulders heaved as if she carried entire planets. She looked down at her own hands, the same hands that had torn apart armored mechs, that had crushed skulls and shattered hulls, but had also caught children, held crying elders, and shielded the weak. She didn't know when the tears started. Xyathans didn't cry. Their ducks weren't meant for that. Yet the burning salt stung her eyes, and she let out a choking, rattling breath. Elias stepped closer. He carefully, almost reverently, pressed his forehead against hers. Despite the difference in size, he did it without fear, as if greeting an old friend. "You're allowed to be more than a weapon," he said. "Your rage is real, but it doesn't have to be the end of your story. You can fight for something. Someone." Somewhere in the far reaches of her mind, something broke. The iron chain she had forged around her own heart, taught by her people to never show softness, to never show fear, to never show pain, it snapped. Kara's massive arms rose, hesitated, then slowly, awkwardly, closed around Elias. She expected him to flinch or to scream. But he only let out a soft exhale, his small hands pressing into her shoulders. And in that quiet, broken moment, the world breaker wept. Underscore 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 underscore. They stayed like that for hours in the ruins of the mining colony. Kara's sobs echoed off the walls, a sound so deep and raw it felt as if the station itself might shatter. Elias never moved, never pulled away. When she finally pulled back, her massive hands still cradled him gently, her eyes wide and raw. Elias looked up at her and offered a tired, gentle smile. "Will you come with me?" he asked softly. "There's a world that needs protecting, and I think they need you more than they know." Kara looked around. The colony was dead, a place that had only ever echoed with violence and fear. She felt the weight of her choices, the battles, the blood, the endless echoes of screams. And then she looked at Elias. In his eyes, she saw not fear, not worship, not orders. Only quiet faith. Slowly, she nodded. Underscore 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 underscore. The shuttle they boarded was small, barely enough to hold her massive frame. She had to fold herself awkwardly, her knees nearly up to her chest. Elias fussed around her, adjusting the straps, whispering apologies each time he brushed against her thick hair or heavy shoulders. "How did you learn to stand in front of a deathworlder like me?" she asked finally, her voice hoarse. Elias smiled as he checked a power cell. "Engineers have to learn to stand in front of angry captains, malfunctioning reactors, and collapsing decks. You're not so scary compared to a reactor meltdown." She huffed, a sound that started as a growl but slowly turned into something else. A rough, hesitant laugh. When they landed on the next world, Elias introduced her to a group of settlers living on the fringes of a wild, unstable forest. The settlers' homes were fragile, pieced together from scrap metal and old starship plating. The children stared at Kara with wide, terrified eyes. The adults trembled at her approach. But Elias stood beside her, hand on her wrist, and whispered, "Show them." Kara stepped forward, taking a massive breath. Her voice still shook the air when she spoke. "I have come to protect you," she announced, her eyes scanning the crowd. "I will not harm you, unless you threaten the ones I love." Silence. Then a small, trembling voice. "Are you going to eat us?" a child asked, clutching a stuffed drone. Kara's eyes softened. She lowered herself to one knee, her massive head dropping to the child's level. "No," she said quietly, almost tenderly. "I will stand between you and every monster that comes. You are safe." The child crept forward, hesitated, then pressed a tiny, shaking hand against Kara's massive fingers. It was the beginning. Underscore 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 underscore. She learned to rebuild homes using her strength, to carry entire prefabricated walls as if they were nothing. She cleared forests, lifted fallen logs, redirected rivers. At first, the settlers avoided her touch, flinched at her roars. But gradually, they started to see her differently. Children began to ride her shoulders. Elders rested against her armored back during cool evenings. When storms threatened, she would wrap her arms around the largest homes, her massive frame shielding them from debris. Elias watched it all with a quiet, knowing smile. "You see," he told her one night, as they sat beneath a field of alien stars. "Your anger. It was always love in disguise. Kara looked down at her massive hands, then at the small, smiling humans who now trusted her. Her eyes glimmered under the moonlight. Perhaps, she said, her voice low and full of wonder, I am more than just a weapon. Exactly, Elias replied, leaning against her side without hesitation. For the first time in her life, she believed it too. Kara had never known silence like this. On Zyeth, silence meant the calm before a predator struck. A pause before a quake split the ground open. Here, among the human settlers, silence meant peace. The hush of children sleeping, the gentle murmur of wind moving through new crops, the quiet shared between friends under starlight. But Kara didn't yet know what to do with peace. Her massive shoulders twitched, her claws drummed restlessly on the dirt. Elias often found her standing alone at night, eyes scanning for threats that never came. You're allowed to rest, Elias told her one evening, his voice soft. He sat cross-legged on a rock beside her, tinkering with a small drone. Kara's molten eyes glimmered in the moonlight. Rest is for the weak, she rumbled, though her voice held no conviction. No, Elias corrected her, looking up. Rest is for those strong enough to protect others without needing to prove it every second. She turned to him slowly. His face, tired and sunburned, carried the same warmth it always had. In that moment, he looked impossibly fragile to her. A creature who should have been crushed long ago, yet somehow still shining. How did you learn all this? She asked, genuinely curious. Elias chuckled, pushing his messy hair back. I didn't. I watched people fall apart for too long, including myself. I learned that fixing hearts is harder than fixing engines. Kara felt something strange stir inside her chest, a warmth that felt dangerously close to vulnerability. She swallowed hard, her thick neck muscles tightening. Before she could answer, a shout rose from the settlement. Then another. Fire! Someone screamed. The western ridge, it's burning. Kara bolted upright so quickly the ground cracked beneath her feet. Elias barely had time to grab his tool belt before she scooped him into her arms and launched herself toward the glowing horizon. Underscore 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 underscore. The western ridge was a jagged slope of black rock and new forest. Flames roared down the incline like a living creature, feeding on the dry alien shrubs the settlers had carefully cultivated. Sparks rose into the air, forming a hellish sky. Kara dropped Elias at the edge of the settlement and charged forward, bellowing a roar that shook the entire valley. Settlers scrambled to form bucket lines, but the fire moved faster than they could hope to match. Kara threw herself into the blaze without hesitation. Her massive arms smashed burning trees, tossing them away from huts. She tore up entire burning roots with her bare hands and hurled them toward a clearing. Water lines! Elias shouted, running alongside terrified farmers, connecting half-finished pipes, redirecting irrigation tanks. She needs backup. Through the wall of flames, Kara's glowing eyes locked onto his. Even from a distance, he could see her face twisted in pain. Not from the fire, but from the knowledge she couldn't save everything at once. She roared again, a sound Elias had only heard on the mining colony, pure, unfiltered, primal. But this time it wasn't a roar of destruction. It was a cry of defiance. Elias pulled hoses, redirected power from solar batteries to water pumps, screamed instructions over the roar of fire and collapsing wood. Meanwhile, Kara formed a living wall between the flames and the main settlement, her massive shoulders and thick arms blackened with soot. At last, rain arrived, a thin, acidic drizzle at first, then a steady downpour that began to choke the flames. Together with Kara's efforts, the line held. Smoke and steam rose into the dark sky. When it was finally over, Kara dropped to her knees, panting, mud and ash caking her body. Elias ran to her side, his clothes soaked and streaked with soot. She looked at him with wide, hollow eyes. I could not save the outer fields, she rasped. Elias pressed his hand to her cheek, ignoring the heat radiating off her skin. You saved their homes. You saved their lives. You gave them a future. Kara stared at him, her huge chest heaving. Slowly, her massive hands rose, trembling, and cradled his much smaller form. I felt fear, she admitted, voice nearly a whisper. Not for myself, for them. Elias nodded, tears cutting clean lines through the soot on his face. That's love, Kara. That's exactly what it is. Underscore 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 underscore. The days after the fire passed in a blur of rebuilding and tending wounds. Many settlers had lost food stores and supplies, but no lives. For the first time, they truly saw Kara not as a monster or living weapon, but as their protector. Children approached her freely now, climbing over her huge arms, hiding in her thick hair as they played. Elders asked for her help lifting heavy stones or repairing roofs, joking with her as if she'd always belonged. One evening, a group of children presented her with a gift, a simple woven band, strung together from local fibers and glimmering beads. "It's for family," the smallest child explained shyly, pressing it into her massive palm. "You wear it so everyone knows you belong." Kara stared at the delicate gift, her enormous fingers dwarfing it. Her eyes softened, lips parting slightly in awe. She turned to Elias, who nodded silently, encouraging her. Carefully, so carefully, she slipped the band around one of her thick wrist ridges. When she looked up, her molten eyes shimmered, and for a long moment, she simply let herself be hugged by the small hands around her legs and waist. Underscore 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 underscore. Weeks passed, and the settlement grew stronger. Green sprouted where ashes once lay. New water systems, designed by Elias and built with Kara's massive strength, irrigated the fields better than before. But one morning, a ship landed beyond the ridge, a sleek vessel bearing the insignia of the coalition enforcers. Armored troops stepped out, scanning the area with cold, calculating eyes. Kara felt her rage surge instantly, claws flexing, shoulders tensing. Elias stepped in front of her, hands raised. "Wait," he urged softly. "Let me talk to them first." The commander, a gaunt alien with narrow eyes and gray exoskeletal plating, stepped forward. "We tracked a war criminal to this sector," the commander declared, eyes sweeping over Kara's massive form. "The Xiathan Berserker, she is wanted for destruction of multiple installations and unauthorized combat." A hush fell over the settlement. Fear rippled through the crowd. Kara took a step forward, towering above the troops. Her breath came in deep, rumbling gusts. Elias moved closer to her side. "Don't," he whispered urgently. "Don't give them what they expect." The commander glanced at Elias with disdain. "You protect this monster," he spat. "She is a threat to every life in this sector." "No," Elias said firmly. "She saved this settlement. She saved all of us." "You came too late. She's not the same creature you think she is." The commander scoffed. "She cannot change. Violence is her nature. Step aside, human." Elias looked up at Kara. His eyes held the same unshakable faith that had stopped her fists once before. "You choose," he told her softly. "Show them who you really are." Kara trembled, her claws scraping the ground, her entire body coiled like a spring. The commander watched her with a smug, expectant smirk, already preparing his orders to open fire. Then, Kara exhaled. She slowly sank to one knee, her claws turning open, palms facing up. Her massive shoulders lowered, her head bowed slightly. "I am no longer the berserker," she said, her voice low but echoing across the clearing. "I am their shield. Their friend. Their family. If you must take someone, take me, but you will not harm them." Silence. The commander froze, his expression cracking. The settlers began to step forward, gathering around her. Children clutched her arms, elders pressed their hands to her shoulders. "She stays with us," a farmer called out. "She's family," another shouted. Elias moved to her side, placing his hand firmly on her thick, scarred knuckles. "She's more human than you'll ever understand," he declared. Faced with an entire settlement standing united behind Kara, the commander hesitated. His troops shifted uncertainly. Finally, he lowered his weapon, disgust curling his lip. "We will report your choice," he snapped. "But don't expect the coalition to forget this." He turned sharply, and the troops filed back to the ship. Engines roared, and within moments, they vanished into the sky. Underscore 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 underscore. That night, a bonfire blazed in the settlement's heart. Sparks rose into the starry sky as music and laughter echoed. Kara sat among them, her massive frame circled by dancing children and chatting settlers. The woven band still glimmered on her wrist. She seemed almost hesitant to touch it, afraid it might break. Elias sat beside her, a mug of steaming broth in his hands. He leaned against her massive shoulder without hesitation. "You chose peace," he said quietly, a smile tugging at his lips. "I chose them," she corrected softly. After a pause, she looked down at him. Her molten eyes seemed softer than ever before. "Do you think," she began slowly, almost shyly, "there is a place for me beyond this? Beyond fighting and rage?" Elias looked up, warmth shining in his tired eyes. "I think you already found it. You just need to believe it." She stared at the sky, letting the alien constellations blur into streaks of light. Slowly, she lowered her massive head and rested her forehead against his. "I used to believe my rage was all I had," she whispered. "But now I know it was just my heart screaming to be heard." "And it was," Elias said softly, smiling. "It was heard." For the first time in her life, Kara felt truly at peace. Not because she had won a fight, not because an enemy lay broken at her feet, but because someone had chosen to stay. She looked around the fire, at the children she had sworn to protect, the elders she had carried across mud and ash, the humans who had taught her what it meant to hold someone instead of crush them. And beside her, Elias, the small, fragile, unstoppable human who had cracked her armor with nothing but faith. Kara let out a deep, rumbling laugh, and the entire circle turned to look at her. She raised her massive hands in mock surrender. "I am learning," she declared loudly, her voice echoing into the dark hills, "that perhaps love is a better weapon than any claw or blade." Cheers erupted around her. Someone threw flowers into her hair, and a child climbed into her lap giggling. For the first time, Kara didn't flinch at the closeness. She simply held the child with infinite gentleness. As the firelight flickered and laughter rose into the night sky, she finally allowed herself to believe that her story didn't have to end in violence, that perhaps the greatest strength she had was not her rage, but her heart. And in the warmth of that fire, surrounded by her chosen family, Kara realized she had already become the warrior she was always meant to be. Not a berserker, but a guardian, a sister, a friend. And in the eyes of one human, the only human brave enough to stand in front of her, she saw it all reflected back. A miracle.